Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. As OpTic's difficult start to Major 4 continues, it seems that some, if not most of the players on the roster might well be under the weather at the present time. Is that the reason they're not playing for the Hex quarters? That remains to be seen over the coming minutes, but indication that that might be the case and might be some of the reason behind their poor form to start off this stage. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Really up to the channel, thank you very much indeed for doing that. 4 really interesting games today, like incredibly important. The fact that OpTic isn't on great form right now is definitely helping some of the teams that are, let's just say, above New York in the standings get some more points up on the board. Boston, of course, being one of them yesterday. We'll see their match right at the end of the video. But the first game of the day, London versus Toronto. This honestly to me was a surprise. Like, given the way that Los Angeles Guerrillas played in their next series against New York, I actually thought that this makes sense. Just because Toronto, I thought, played pretty well against Los Angeles Guerrillas, but as it turns out, like they were no match for Zero back on form. It seems like this London team with Gizmo in, when they're firing on all cylinders, is just so much fun to watch and so hard to stop as well. Zero had a monster series here for London, and Gizmo as well just seems to somehow be the catalyst, right? When Harry was there, Zero was not comfortable at all. Zero, when Gizmo was in the team, was at a top 3 area in the game at the start of the year, and then since Harry came in, wasn't really the case at all, but now Gizmo's back, Zero's on form again apparently. They win the game 1 against Toronto. Like, honestly, Toronto, like, their weakness really was when they were, sucking pretty bad earlier on in the season, was that they just couldn't win a hardpoint, right? And now if they're getting back to not being able to win a hardpoint, that is certainly a scary sign for them, right? And well, of course, if they can't win the Search and Destroys either, because it's Gizmo with an ace round 11 and a 1 versus 2 clutch as well to, well, put them up 2-0 in the series. Control has always been a terrible mode for London this year, though, and Toronto are generally pretty damn good at it. They win that one to kind of, well, give themselves a chance here in the series. Nice play from CleanX, but in the end, it's Toronto that go down 3-1. They go to a Berlin hardpoint where both teams are pretty good, but it's Ravens especially, like, when they've been on form this year, this has been one of their maps where they dominate pretty much everyone. And Zero again, 31 in 16. The rest of the guys pretty much even. Nasty had a great map as well, and series on the whole. And I mean, yeah, just phenomenal respawn work from the London guys at Clutch Factory with the Search and Destroy as well to close out the series. This is pretty big as time progresses, right? Because yes, London might have been a little bit suspect for the World Championship, but now with 160 points or whatever they have, they should be solidified. This win pretty much, I would say, puts London champs. Like, it's still not absolutely guaranteed, but I would say this win should be good enough to put them in that position. Toronto, still, it is a little bit suspect for them. Yes, they did pretty well at Major 3. I'd still certainly say they're going to make it, but still it gets a little bit more suspect there, right? And of course, in terms of qualification for the Major, that's kind of the key point here, right? If you go, let's just say 1 in 4, probably not going to happen to Toronto, but if a team does go 1 in 4 and starts in losers, then you find themselves, well, having a really hard time making a run at the Major, and therefore getting less points at the Major, right? Which therefore means, like, bad starts here compounds into the rest of, well, effectively the entire stage, and compounds into the points that you can put up on the board. But this is the series, stats 0, 1.58 KT, 95 in 60, topped all the stats across the board. Impressive stuff. Great series from Nasty as well. Don't see that all that often, but I mean, with the damage and the impact he was putting up on the board, impressive work. And yeah, surprising scenes. CleanX a 0.74. Didn't have a great series stat-wise actually yesterday either, but they still won the series. Today he drops the same stat line and loses it, right? So definitely a concern, I think, for Toronto that their respawn, their hardpoint, was not looking particularly good this series. Therefore, Subliners versus LAG, I thought this might be a relatively close fought affair, but Subliners would win. Given what I just saw Toronto do, I was like, okay, well, LAG must just be terrible then, if of course, well, Toronto was losing to the London Royal Ravens, and that's pretty much what happened this series. This, honestly, I saw this scoreboard and I was like, okay, wow, this change was not the one, because, yeah, getting rid of Asim when these are the numbers, like, this is honestly mind-blowing, right? They lost by 150 points, 250 to 104. This might be the worst, if not one of the worst stat lines I've ever seen. Look how much they are gone outslayed by. Barely any. Look at this, right? So Neptune's what? +1, Huke's +4, so that's +5, and then Spart's -6, then -4. So they're what? They got outslayed by 5 kills. Outslayed by 5 kills, and lost by 150 points. That just does not add up, especially because Huke has, look at this hill time. Huke has literally 0 hill time, like 0 time in the hill. Slasher has 8 seconds. Like, I don't know what Huke is doing on the map here. He's somehow positive, but they're losing by 150 points. Like, I don't know. I just don't get it, right? This is where you gotta wonder the whole Asim situation, that it's like, yeah, what is this team doing? When you're losing like this, and it's not just one map they did this. You could add together the amount of points they got in both hard points, they still wouldn't have won a map. Fair play to New York, as often they do kind of have similar slaying and blow a team out. But like, this is an awful indictment really on Los Angeles Guerrillas and their current roster, especially because I thought that Neptune might turn up and fry this series. It wasn't the case. Game 2, round 11, it goes the way of, well, actually a 2 versus 3 here. Slasher was trying his best. He had like 14 kills, but yeah, wasn't enough at all. Hydra and Crimsix clutch up this 2 versus 3 to, well, take a 2-0 advantage. And then, funny scenes really, because Los Angeles Guerrillas hadn't won a control since all the way back in, well, Major 2, the grand final there, and I'm sure, well, Crim and the boys came in here thinking that they'd, well, close this out, no problem at all, but they lose the control and have to clutch up on the game 4, but they do that with no effort at all. Like, honestly, this game, despite a nice advantage here, or a nice, well, kind of streak from Huke to try and give them a chance, they again just blew them out on the second set of rotations. And I mean, yeah, look at this, right? When New York actually rotated to a hard point, when they got set up first, they won 364 points to just 60 of LAG. Like, they were just locking down hills. LAG's breaks were non-existent at all. And as Crim says, Paco goes, that being Hydra, guys, they're 0-10 on control, 11-1 once in stage 2. We literally cannot lose. And of course, that's exactly what they do. So Crim wasn't particularly happy about it, and of course, Sasha wasn't happy about it either after, well, losing this one, right? Because they make the change, and it does not seem to have helped them at all. If anything, they look worse than they did. Losing the hard points the way they did as well was just pretty embarrassing, right? The fact that they didn't get outplayed by that much and lost both hard points in dominating fashion is just shows that something is fundamentally wrong with this current lineup. But honestly, Neptune and Huke as an SMG duo, we talked about it, right? I was like, does it actually make sense? Are they actually going to play in the right way? Because that was the big talking point from Neptune when he was on New York. They said, well, we didn't play hard point the right way. Crim's way wasn't very good. My way's better. And then turns out that Crim seems to pretty know what he's doing in hard point, right? So that, yeah, I'm sure he feels pretty good about that one, right? To look at the slaying numbers, kind of incredible how consistent the entire team was in that series from New York. So look, their run is starting. They're 2-0. Yes, teams around them are also picking up victories, but they just need to win out. It's still within their hands, right? If New York win everything, they will qualify. Like, I think maybe there's a world in which they don't, but still, like, that will be the case if they win everything. So it's still within their hands. Like, they've made a good start here. They're looking really strong right now. Let's talk about the OpTic series then. The key point that was noticed straight away, I mean, obviously we noticed this yesterday as well, but I thought, okay, maybe it's just a one-off or something. But 3 of the players, not including Prolute, were not kind of, well, not being seen on their cameras, which was always the case with OpTic if they were playing from the Hex quarters alongside each other, as clearly Minnesota Rokkr are. So probably Dashi, Shotzi, and Scump, at least 2 out of the 3, probably at the minimum, are playing from their home setups, which of course isn't so ideal, and more than likely indicating that they, well, might have contracted something or tested positive or something, and therefore are, well, staying at home for now and probably not feeling at 100%. Now, this was mentioned last night actually by Rambo, that some players lately have been, well, been under the weather. It wasn't mentioned specifically, but as it's kind of been saying right here, there's been some roadblocks as well in addition to the illy stuff, like the lingering thumb injury for an unsung leader of the team, that being illy, or missing scrimmages with a sick player. So it doesn't necessarily clarify what the sick player was, but yeah, supposedly there has been someone under the weather, and it might be more than one player on the team, especially because you guys might remember this a couple of days ago, there was the OpTic party, right? This is kind of a big talking point that all the OpTic guys were going to go to this party, have a great time, which is absolutely fine. Like, I've got no problem with players having a party and having a good time, right? But we did see just a couple of days after this, the OpTic Valorant team, Marved and FNS, both of them tested positive, and therefore they had to, well, they played their matchup as they did, but they weren't feeling great. Like, FNS said he was feeling really bad, was throwing up and all this type of stuff, and at the same party was, well, obviously some of the OpTic guys. Shotzi was not there, I think, at least Scump said Shotzi wasn't there because he wouldn't have been old enough to drink, but Scump was definitely there, Dashi was definitely there, the other guys were definitely there as well, and it's more than likely, given the situation, that they picked something up, right? They probably picked something up from this party, whatever it was, and therefore are not feeling particularly great. We of course know what FNS and Marv tabbed as well, so that maybe is a plausible explanation as to why they're not at the headquarters and maybe why they're not feeling great, right? Maybe they've had to miss scrimmages if they're not feeling great either, and also not playing at 100% capacity. We'll see how it goes over the coming days, but you know, still this series, they might not be feeling great, but it must be said that there's so much, like every single series OpTic play, there's something that's just like, well, that's classic OpTic, right? You see it again and again and again, and well, game 1, it was a Bacage. Honestly, could have gone either way, to be honest. Kind of surprised OpTic went in for this. The vetoes, again, kind of questionable. Not sure they should be playing a Bacage, but, you know, maybe that's kind of one of their favourite hardpoint maps right now, but they lose to Minnesota. Game 2, I mean, this is just such classic stuff. OpTic is honestly unbelievable. Like, losing this round as well, where the Ninja Diffuse comes in here from Priestahh, like, they probably should have found a way to play this a little bit better, right? But in fairness to Prolute, he makes a massive play a little bit later on, clutches a big 1v2 to put OpTic up 4-3, and then it becomes a 5-3 in favour of OpTic, right? But I don't know what OpTic's win percentage is from a 5-3 situation, but it can't be much better than like 50%, right? They seem to always lose 5-3s. It's incredible how predictable it is. They go up 5-3, and then all of a sudden it's a full collapse, right? And it goes from a 5-3 to a 5-5, and then in the end it's Minnesota that take the win, right? So OpTic, I don't know, honestly, fair play to OpTic for regaining after that, because like that was just the way they collapse, right, up 5-3, and the way they lose the rounds after that. Like, whenever OpTic are like one round away, I swear they just start doing some crazy stuff. But look, in fairness, I got to credit the kind of resilience of OpTic, because I thought after that this series is chalked, and it was, but you know, still the control, where they've not been good lately, they just bounced back massively here in the control. Won 2 offenses in a row. This looked like vintage OpTic, right? This is a 2 versus 6 actually that Prolute and Dashi had right here. Some phenomenal plays from both of these guys. The nade from Prelude was great, to 2 versus 2 all of a sudden. They have about 10 seconds to get in the points. They find one of the kills, close it out as well and attach. This was just phenomenal work from OpTic, right? They looked like the OpTic of old here, winning controls in dominant fashion against a good team on this map like Minnesota. But Tons said a stat before the final map of the series. It was Berlin Hardpoint, and he said that I'm pretty sure they'd lost their last 7 in a row. They were looking awful on this map as of late. OpTic, of course, Berlin Hardpoint, that was a big talking point back at stage 1, stage 2. Like, they want to try and put it into their kind of map set rotation effectively. And well, typically, OpTic play a team that's on a 7-map loss streak on Berlin, and then of course they go on to lose it as well. It was a close game, like it could have gone either way, but in the end it's Minnesota. It's just about clutch up. Every single map of that series that was close, OpTic lost, right? It just goes to show that their clutch factor with Elite at the start of the year was one thing. Their clutch factor now is completely the other way around, right? And I did tweet this out, I mean, look, it's just impression farming. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but it is incredibly interesting how similar the situation was back in Major 1, where they got reverse swept by London. This time around, they got reverse swept, of course, yesterday by the Boston Breach. They lost to Minnesota game 2. Then game 3 of both of their runs here, they played Paris. They'll play Paris next week. If they beat Paris, they're on for the same thing as Major 1, where they won 7 straight series and won the Major. Just looking at this OpTic team right now, though, it doesn't seem likely that that's going to happen. But if Philly comes back, maybe it's possible, but probably that's not happening sooner rather than later, especially if their other players are feeling under the weather right now and aren't playing at their full potential. So in tweeting your thoughts on all this stuff, right? I mean, lack of practice, difficult times, but yeah, maybe like Scump, or probably Scump's not feeling great. It didn't seem like he's playing great, to be honest. That Berlin Hardpoint again was pretty tragic from him. Dashy somehow drops a 1.44. Not really sure how that's possible, but he did it. 92 kills, 64 deaths. Needed a bit of help on some of those maps, to be honest, especially that Berlin. I thought that like the reverse route was on if the rest of the guys played a bit better on that Berlin, to be honest, but Dashy was doing his best to no avail. And credit to Havok as well in Minnesota. Hugely impactful that series and a huge 10 points for them in terms of championship standings. And the final series of the day then, credit to Los Angeles Thieves keeping this one quick, was an absolute demolition job of the Boston Breach by LA Thieves. This is exactly, I was getting deja vu watching this. I was like, have I not seen Thieves do this before to Boston? And then I was thinking back on my prediction and saying Boston, I was like, I'm pretty faded for this one. I should have looked at the historical data, because Thieves have demolished them every time they've played them so far this year, especially the one that they played in Major 3 qualifiers, where they beat them in the fastest series of the year. This was honestly not too far off. Game 1, Gavutu, like, I mean, yeah, I don't know what Boston do half the time on this map. Doesn't really seem like it's the map to go for with these SMGs, because they get put in the blender. Like, you really want to, well, I don't know, I'm not the coach, of course, of this team, but I would imagine you probably want to avoid maps like Gavutu against a team like Thieves, where they're kind of AR focused, and they can run 3 ARs effectively when you've got an SMG line which really prefers the faster aggressive moments, but, you know, who am I to judge? Thieves win game 1. Game 2 goes their way as well. This, I thought Boston for a second might do the kind of full sell they did to London or whatever it was. Well, no, they go down 5-0, win 2 rounds before Thieves closed out. But this is exactly what happened before. Thieves just ran them over with the same setups they did pretty much last time around in Major 3. And, I mean, like, the speed at which Thieves were winning these rounds was phenomenal. Fair play to them. Kenny had a great series here. And then before you know it, the series is over, right? It goes to a Gavutu control, where, again, Boston are terrible so far this season. And even with Vivid, that doesn't seem to have changed. So I think questionable vetoes to me from Boston. Thieves played great. This is, well, a rinse and repeat of what happened before. This I thought was kind of incredible, actually. I looked up the stats. They beat Boston in Major 3 qualifiers, 250-93, 6-0-3-0. This time, obviously, you know, some more points in Boston, but still another 3-0 in dominant fashion by Thieves. So good points for them. Boston, again, on 140 points right now, but still far from safe as time is progressing. That's a bounty series as well, so congratulations to LA Thieves for their 10k they put in the bank. But yeah, when Kenny's dropping 73 kills and 1.6 KD, most damage in the lobby, like, and we haven't seen that too much lately, Robin. If you give Kenny AR maps, that's probably what's going to happen. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on this stuff in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, hit on the like button, tell us YouTube gods, this is a good video, others like you should see it as well, and I've grown the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you much as always, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.